I'm Paul Edwards. I'm a self-published horror author, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Today, we're talking about why Rodan and Godzilla lost when they fought King Ghidorah in 1965 in Monster Zero, released in some markets as Invasion of Astro Monster or as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. The thing you have to understand about this film is that it followed Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. That was a film in which Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla all joined forces to fight against a common enemy, this new space monster, King Ghidorah, a three-headed dragon. In this film, which takes place after King Ghidorah had been driven away from the Earth and into outer space, in this film, a new planet is discovered orbiting our sun, Planet X, and it's populated by intelligent aliens. The aliens are plagued now by King Ghidorah, at least seemingly. King Ghidorah wound up on their planet and is terrorizing them. And the aliens ask the Earth people if they can borrow Godzilla and Rodan to come to their planet and fight King Ghidorah and chase him away, just like they did on Earth in the previous film. So this sounds like a great deal to the Earth people, so they agree. And the aliens come to Earth, they capture Godzilla and Rodan, and they bring those monsters to Planet X, where they immediately get into a fight with King Ghidorah, and for the moment, drive King Ghidorah away. Everyone wins. The Earth has gotten rid of Godzilla and Rodan, Planet X has gotten rid of King Ghidorah, and looks like everything is fine. But of course, it's not. It turns out the Planet X people never really had a problem with King Ghidorah. He's been under their mind control the whole time. And the reason they wanted Godzilla and Rodan up there on their planet was to subject Godzilla and Rodan to their mind control. Now, Planet X has an army of monsters. Godzilla, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, all under their control. And they threaten the Earth that they're going to destroy us with these monsters unless we surrender to their domination. So they let loose the monsters, and the monsters trample the cities by means mostly of stock footage from previous monster films like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and the original Rodan. But the Earth people find a way to break the electronic control that the aliens have over the minds of these monsters. So the aliens' plan is thwarted. And now the monsters are acting on their own. Immediately, Godzilla and Rodan see their enemy, King Ghidorah, and start to attack him. The monsters grapple and claw at each other and wind up at the top of a cliff, and they all tumble together while still fighting. They all tumble together into the sea. They sink underwater. The seawater is disturbed, and there's a whole lot of commotion going on in this unseen underwater battle. And only one monster emerges from the ocean. King Ghidorah rises from the sea and flies off into space, victorious. And Rodan and Godzilla are not seen again in this movie. Well, why did King Ghidorah win, and why did Rodan and Godzilla lose? After all, they won last time. Well, there's a couple of reasons for this. The most obvious answer would seem to be that Mothra was not in this battle, because in the previous film, Rodan, Godzilla, and Mothra all together had driven King Ghidorah away. And this time, Mothra was not in the picture. But that can't really be the answer. Mothra's absence can't be the deciding factor, because on the battle that took place on the surface of Planet X, Godzilla and Rodan did drive King Ghidorah away. Oh yeah, Mothra wasn't there either, and Godzilla and Rodan won that round. So it can't just be Mothra's absence. There has to be more to it. I believe there are two different reasons. There's a reason why Godzilla lost and a reason why Rodan lost. They're not the same thing. The reason Godzilla lost is that the battle did not go on long enough. Sure, Ghidorah is larger and tougher than Godzilla, but Ghidorah doesn't have the quick healing factor that Godzilla does. We've seen in several Showa-era Godzilla movies that Godzilla has the ability to heal from even dramatic injuries almost, in a matter of moments. In Terror of Mechagodzilla and in Godzilla on Monster Island specifically, we were shown Godzilla being, critically wounded, and then 60 seconds later he was up and ready to go for another round again. So in this case, the battle, I say, did not take long enough for Godzilla to get the upper hand. The upper claw? For Godzilla to prevail. Because if the battle had gone on, King Ghidorah would have worn out and gotten tired, but Godzilla would continue to renew his strength because of his healing factor. So that's why Godzilla lost, because the battle was just too short and Godzilla wasn't able to use the advantage of his healing factor. Why Rodan lost is a little bit different of an issue. I feel that Rodan has not fully been portrayed right since the original film, Rodan. If you remember the original film, Rodan was terrifyingly powerful. Just by flying over a city, he would destroy the city because he was so huge and traveled at such fast speeds that he would create these hurricane winds beneath him. And, he would just fly over a city and the buildings would topple and cars would tumble down the road. And he was just devastating without even having to make physical contact with anything and, just flying by. That really has not been a power that's been shown much in subsequent movie appearances of Rodan. They'll show that his wings can flap and make, a strong wind, but they really have not used the powerful gale force blast of air that was shown in the first Rodan movie. The closest that they've come, I think, is in Godzilla Final Wars, where they did a short but pretty good depiction of Rodan's supersonic speed devastating everything around him. So in this movie, we are shown a couple of clips of Rodan's, flapping its wings and destroying the city with its wind power, but those are recycled clips from the first Rodan movie. In the original footage shot from Monster Zero, Rodan isn't using that power. He's just, pecking his beak against the enemy monster and smacking his wing on top of it, and, it's not very impressive. So I don't really feel that they've ever done Rodan justice since the original Rodan movie. In fact, after the Showa era, the way that they've depicted Rodan doesn't really even look like Rodan. Think of every film appearance Rodan has had other than in the Showa era. Basically, they just make a giant pterodactyl. And Rodan is pterodactyl-like, but that's not really the way that Rodan looked in the original film. Its wings were chunkier, and its build was thicker, and it was able to do things that Rodan has never done in subsequent films, like dive underwater and emerge successfully. So why Godzilla lost, the battle was too short, and why Rodan lost, they didn't put his greatest power in there. That's the reason for each of those losses. I do like the fact that for once they actually had the bad monster win. It's such a cliche for the good monster to always win, and you want there to be a happy ending. But in a movie where it didn't matter which monster lost, because they were all free of the aliens' mind control, I like the fact that for once they made the bad monster win. Not that I want them to make a habit of it, but just to show that it could happen. So that, at least when you're a kid, you're still wondering, well, maybe the bad monsters are going to win this time. But of course, usually they're not. So listen, Monster Zero is a film I used to see all the time on Creature Double Feature on WNYC LVI Channel 56 in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1970s. They would put it on a double bill, Rodan and Monster Zero. In fact, this was one of their most played double features, Rodan and Monster Zero. So I'm very familiar with Monster Zero. I probably saw this film, 5 times more often than I'd seen its predecessor, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And it's definitely still one of my go-to Showa-era Godzilla films. I have a couple of items here that are from the Monster Zero period, which might interest you. First of all, we have, of course, Godzilla himself. And this is a Showa-era representation of Godzilla. This is how he appeared in the mid to late 1960s. And it's a pretty accurate representation of the costume that was used in these films. I also have a Rodan figure, and I'm very glad to have this one because most Rodan figures that are sold are not from the Showa-era Godzilla films. They're from the later films or even the modern Legendary series of films. This is an original Rodan, an original appearance, the way he appeared in the original 1958 movie, Rodan. And I love the detail on it, and it's one of my favorite of the Showa era figures that I have. So I've given you the rundown on why Rodan and Godzilla lost. In case you don't know that this is a running joke, let me explain the background to you so you'll be in on it, okay? My friend Jessica Lewis competed on Survivor Season 33, Millennials versus Generation X. I'll save you the trouble of looking it up. She did not win. But because she did that, she now co-hosts a podcast on Rob Has a Website called Why Blank Lost. And this is the shirt for their podcast show. So a while ago, I decided it would be funny if I did a Why Monster Lost, because, monster fans are always having these discussions. Which monster would win in a fight? How come this monster lost against that one? And it was a popular video, but although Jessica does watch my channel sometimes, she didn't notice it. So I did another one, and she didn't notice that one. So now I'm trying to see how many Why Monster Lost episodes I can put out until the day comes, and it will come, when she notices them and texts me and says, "Paul, are you making fun of my show?" And I'm not. I'm not making fun of Jessica's show at all. It's a great show. You should check it out if you're at all interested in reality TV. But in my world, of course, the interesting things are monsters, and so my parody of her show is Why Monster Lost. So listen, if you can think of a suggestion for another episode of Why Monster Lost, please let me know. I've got about 10 of them done so far, and there are a lot more monster battles than that, so we can keep this going for as long as we can. So let me know in the comments. Thanks for spending some time talking about one of my favorite 1960s giant monster films, Monster Zero. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.